Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk. I'm Tracy Morgan. So nice to have you with us today. Of course, this is our day with specialized staffing, and that means Lisa Gard is with us today. And we're going to be talking about temping. Have you ever thought about it? Students, have you ever thought about it? We're on the heels of graduation here, so it'll be a good topic to discuss with Lisa for about 30 minutes. Now, don't forget, if you have to be mobile, we have that solution. It's the free app on your Android or iPhone device. Just go ahead and download that, and then we can go along with you wherever you'd like. If you'd like us on the computer, that is 24/7. We stream at WISR680.com. All right, Lisa Gard, owner of Specialized Staffing, of course, right here in Butler, but reaching throughout Western Pennsylvania, even into Ohio, getting people jobs. How are you, Lisa?
Doing great, Tracy. How about yourself?
Good. And you know what? I say getting people jobs, but actually you're matching people with your clients, and your clients are actually the businesses who pay you.
Good point. Absolutely. We're getting people for jobs is what we're doing.
There's a benefit all around here. But you know what, Lisa, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about temping. I know that was your focus today, but I also wanted to ask you questions that pertain to students because graduation's not that far off. And even if we're not going to graduate, I'm wondering how temping works in. So why is this issue important to college students who are about to graduate?
That's a great question. Well, you know, the obvious answer is when you're graduating from college, what do you need most? Money. So, you know, the first benefit of doing project work, of course, is just to keep money coming in. And if you're just graduating and you've got, you know, you're starting paying those student loans, this is a great way to get money coming in. Also, though, if you're just graduating, you probably don't have a lot of experience in your field. So if you can land an assignment that is in your field or close to your field, that certainly is helpful getting you some experience under your belt.
So those soon-to-be college graduates, should they look for a temp job that's within their desired career, or do they just take whatever comes for financial reasons?
Sure. And I think both of those are great choices. Obviously you're going to need money coming in. So, you know, typically when we're working with recent grads, they're very flexible in terms of taking positions and accepting opportunities that are, you know, maybe a little outside of the parameters of their field or maybe a little more entry level than they had expected. But when you're just graduating, you do need to get money coming in. So, you know, either of those options, and if you can kill both birds with one stone, then heck, why not?
And I know we keep talking about college graduates, but what about high school individuals, whether they're seniors, maybe they're juniors, but is temping work good for them?
Temping is, I think you need to be careful, depending on the staffing firm. You need to make sure you're old enough. There is an age requirement, and I believe it's 18. I believe you have to be 18 to work on most of the insurance plans that a lot of have. I may be wrong. I'm speaking for my own company, and you need to be 18 to work for us. But that may not be the case for other staffing firms. So it certainly doesn't hurt to call around.
Well, then let's keep our mind focused on college students or even adults, because I'm wondering if a college student may shy away from temping thinking that a working adult would get that job over them. Is it easier for a working adult to get a temp job, or is it just the same for a college student?
Well, typically working adults aren't very motivated to take temp jobs because if they're working, you know, it doesn't make sense for them to accept an assignment that's temporary unless, and there have been circumstances where people who are working are compelled to leave their jobs and take temporary assignments. Typically that revolves around potentially their current opportunity being being eliminated. The writing is on the wall, the company's closing, or they're just truly that unhappy that they would quit a position to take a project assignment. However, that said, employers will always want the most qualified candidate. And, you know, a working adult may be the most qualified candidate for a position if their experience falls within the requirements of the job. But, you know, a recent grad has some things to offer. They have the most recent, the most recent technology, the most up-to-date skills, things like that. So that's not to say that there's, one that's preferred over the other. I think it really just it depends on the requirements of the position.
Can a student request a timeline when they work? And I'm thinking about, those summer months. But as I ask that question, I'm wondering if that goes back into it's better to get a part-time job during those times. What are your thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm. Well, when you apply with a staffing firm, one of the benefits of working with a staffing firm is you can dictate your schedule. So you can say, I want to work full-time between May and August, or I want to work part-time and, I only want to work Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, or I only want to work 4 hours a day. You can say whatever you want. You can dictate whatever you want, and the staffing firm will call you with things that fall within the requirements you've given them. Now, that said, if your requirements are so specific that they're prohibitive, then you won't get many calls. But yes, you can. We get a lot of students who, especially seniors in high school, and also college grads, who want to do temporary work, especially if a college grad is going back to school. If they've just gotten their bachelor's degree and they're going on for their master's degree, they want something, before they move to their next school, or even high school seniors before they go off to college. We'll come in and they'll apply, and they'll say they want to work until August. So that's pretty common.
Well, what if a student, and again, I'll think of a college graduate when I ask this, but an adult could fall into this category, meaning those adults that are out of college already. What if they are working a temp job, whether they're under contract or not? That would be one question for you. But what if then they get that full-time dream job? Can they leave their temp job early? Do they have the right to say, I'm done because now I have another job ready to take me?
Sure, that happens. And, it's just like any other job. Give a notice, leave professionally, don't burn any bridges. So absolutely, if you're on a 3-month assignment and you get a job offer and you have to leave with a month left, everybody understands that. Certainly when you commit to a project, it's always best if you can complete it. However, everybody understands that. So if you get another opportunity and you want to move on, just give a notice. Leave like you would leave any other job. Leave professionally.
Now, how do you get a temp job? Because I know we're talking with you, and if you're just joining us, this is Lisa Gard with Specialized Staffing, and you're a recruiting agency. So I'm wondering what's the difference. If I'm coming into you for a temp job, how does that work?
Mm-hmm. Well, you just give us a call, or you can apply online. Our number is 724-287-8380. You can set up an appointment, or you can go online and apply. Most people already have resumes now, and when you go to apply online, you can attach your resume. There are some online forms to fill out, and then you schedule an appointment, and you come in and you meet with a recruiter. And we'll talk about exactly what it is you're looking to do, where your skills are, where your experience lies, what fields you want to work in, what location you want to work in, what kind of money you want to make. And, once you have that meeting, then we'll call you with any assignments that come in that fall within those requirements that you've given us.
All right, so let's get into, I know you mentioned some benefits for students, but overall, generally speaking, what are those benefits of temping?
Sure. And you touched on some of them already. Whether you're a student or not, keeping money coming in is number one. Sometimes people end up out of work for no reason of their own or no fault of their own. You may end up out of work. And temping is obviously a very good way to keep money coming in. And also, when you think about that, if you happen to lose your job and you apply for unemployment is only a percentage of what you were making. So oftentimes, working project work, you can continue to earn the kind of money you're used to, but also you won't eat up your unemployment as fast. You don't lose your unemployment when you accept a project assignment. What happens is, think about your unemployment as a bank account. As long as you're collecting unemployment, you're withdrawing money from that bank account. If you accept a temp assignment, you start earning a paycheck. So you're no longer withdrawing money from that unemployment account. But when that assignment is over, then you begin withdrawing that again. So you're just not using it up as quickly.
So talk about preferences. I know you're working for companies that pay you to find great recruits that would match the job, but aren't you also working with those applicants to see what's good for them?
Sure, and it's funny because in our profession, we have kind of a little kind of tongue-in-cheek joke. We say, we're in the only profession where we also have to please a product. Not that a person is a product, but our customers have requirements, but what we're providing for our customers, the employees, they're human beings, so they also have preferences. It's not like we're a florist where we can just, take some roses and put them in a vase and send them out. We're working with people. So you as a person, if you're coming to apply, you can let us know what type of schedule you want, what type of pay rate you're looking for, where you want to work location-wise. And when our clients call in with opportunities, we will go to those candidates whose preferences match those requirements. And that's really important for you to be honest when you're talking to a recruiter about that, because if you really only want to work part-time, you don't want to be called with full-time assignments. And if you accept a full-time assignment, there was a reason you wanted to work part-time, and it might be too much of a strain on your schedule. So it's important to think about those things and talk to your recruiter about what type of assignment is going to work best for you, and we just make sure those two things align.
Now, is part-time really part-time? And I say that jokingly because I know I've taken some part-time jobs before, and the next thing you know, you get more hours and more work and more hours, and the next thing you know, you're working more of a full-time schedule instead of a part-time job.
That's a really good point you bring up, Tracy, and it's funny because we advise our clients all the time on this. So frequently we have a client who will call and say, I want somebody who can start out part-time and work their way into full-time. And that makes a lot of sense from an employer standpoint, but like you said, think about it from an employee standpoint. So we advise our clients all the time. Normally when we have somebody who's applying for part-time work, they want to work part-time for a reason. Either they have another part-time job, they have kids that they want to get on the bus and get off of the bus, or, sometimes there are travel things that they have going on. But normally when people come in and say, I only want a part-time job, they really don't want full-time. So if you're a company and you're calling me and you're saying, okay, well, I'm going to start out part-time and go full-time. Well, the person we send you to work part-time is likely going to be very unhappy when you start bumping their hours up. So it's our job to make sure when we're talking to our customers what they're looking for long-term. If this is a part-time job, is it going to stay part-time? If it is going to go full-time, you kind of run into two scenarios there. A, the person you hire part-time is not going to be available when you need them full-time. But B, if you're looking to hire somebody part-time and move them to full-time, you can always hire somebody who's really looking for full-time and willing to take part-time and work into that full-time. But the danger there is if it takes too long, they're going to continue to look for a full-time job. I mean, if they're looking for full-time work because they need that much money coming in, they're not going to be able to stay part-time very long. So that's a real interesting question and a very interesting situation that does come up frequently, and I hope my answer made sense.
Lisa, it did. You mentioned earlier about getting your foot in the door, especially when we're talking about students, but students and adults alike. It is important to get your foot in the door with a company. Anything else that you would like to say about that point?
Sure. Well, typically when you're doing project work, sometimes there is, but oftentimes there's no formal interview required at the company. So you've interviewed with your recruiter who represents you from the staffing firm. So if I'm calling you and saying, hey, I have an assignment, it's going to last 2 months and it's with ABC Company, can you start next week? You're not having to go to ABC Company and interview. Or if you are going there to meet somebody, it's more or less to meet them and kind of learn more about the job. So there isn't quite as much of a formal interview process, so it is a good way to get your foot in the door with companies. The other thing is, it's kind of a working interview. You can you can take a temporary assignment with a company, and you've now gotten your foot in the door. You're meeting people there. They know what kind of work ethic you have. They know what kind of skills you have. And that's so much better than just sending your resume through a search engine and hoping that, somebody sees it and you hear back from them. So there's that. But there's also the opportunity for you to, and I say this jokingly, try before you buy. If oftentimes these assignments turn permanent. And when you've only committed to project work, if you don't like it, you're not committed to accept the position on a permanent basis. So there are no bridges burned if you decide, hey, this assignment was supposed to last 2 months. The 2 months is up, and I really think I want to move on. You're totally, that's totally professional and a professional way to handle that.
There's also one other benefit that I'd like you to touch on, that once you're in the company, you may end up finding unpublished work or unpublished job notices, if you will.
Absolutely. So a lot of times, opportunities that are called into staffing firms that are project work, employers have not run ads and tried to fill these positions on their own. Typically, it's, hey, we need somebody to come in for this project. Let's call a staffing firm. And that's what they do. So these aren't opportunities that you would know about if you hadn't applied with a staffing firm. So that's a real good point. Oftentimes you have access to, opportunities that aren't published.
Lisa Gard with us with Specialized Staffing, of course, based right here in Butler County, but reaching far and wide in western Pennsylvania and into Ohio, and a recruiting firm that does fabulous jobs a fabulous job for both the applicants looking for jobs and, of course, the companies that pay specialized staffing to be able to match up the great employees with the employment. And so when we're talking about temping, Lisa, talk about the skills that we can use during our temping positions and maybe even find some undiscovered skills.
Sure. Well, skills are a very important reason to do project work, and it's one of the benefits to doing project work is to really use any new skills that you may have. If you've just learned a particular software, or you've just learned some accounting practices, it's an awesome opportunity to get to use these things in the real world if you just learn them. But if you have them, it's a good way to maintain them. You don't want to lose them. And also, too, as far as technology, we all know technology is always changing. I mean, you buy a computer today and you have, Word loaded on the computer. You buy the same computer tomorrow and the Word program looks completely different. So this is an awesome way to keep your skills up in terms of the latest technology as well.
And talk about the people that you meet, how they can be references. And whenever we talk about references, I think of a resume at the same time. Talk about how this builds our resume.
Sure. Well, I think those things are obvious. When you're temping, you can put those opportunities that you completed on your resume. So therefore, you are building your resume. And, that leads to less gaps on your resume. It's speaking to your experience, it's speaking to your flexibility, it's speaking to your willingness to work between jobs. And then, of course, obviously meeting people is beneficial because you can use these people as references. You think about references and you think about providing people who can speak to your work ethic, your, ability to perform, and don't discount those people you come in contact with when you're working a project. Those people can provide awesome references for you. One of the things your staffing firm does, I'm sure of it, is they check with the customer once the assignment is complete and they ask how things went. Oftentimes we're pulling information from the client that is very complimentary. So there's great opportunity there for you to gather good references from people you meet. And also networking opportunities. I mean, just getting to know people. I'm sure if you're working somewhere for 3 months and you're finished, there are a few people maybe that you come away with that you keep in touch with. And these are people that, may be able to help you in the future in terms of new opportunities.
So let me ask you what you need to apply. And when I say that, I'm curious on what that means to you. Does that mean apply to you and specialized staffing, or does it mean to apply to this temp job?
Sure. Well, when you're applying for contract work, you're applying with the staffing firm. And when you apply with a staffing firm, typically technology now lends itself to being able to apply online. So, you'll sit down at your computer and you'll log on and fill out some online forms. But it's very helpful to have a resume ready with updated information, your most recent job, the dates of the positions you've held. And it's important to have that information when you sit down to fill out those forms. And also important to have your resume when you go in to meet with a recruiter. Secondly, references. It's very important to have good professional references. And when I say references, I mean people who can speak to things like your work ethic, your skills, your ability to perform, those things. It's great to give your neighbor as a reference or your best friend, but they're really not speaking to the things we need them to speak to. If you don't have any experience at all and you're applying for entry-level work, we realize they may be the only people you can tap into. But there are teachers, there are people you've done volunteer work with, things like that. So think about that and have that ready when you apply for work. And then also, when you apply with a staffing firm, when you physically go in to meet with the staffing firm, you do need 2 forms of identification.
Lisa, I know you don't focus getting people jobs in the educational field, but when you work with kids, no matter what field, you have to have these background checks nowadays, right?
Yes, and there are some clients we have that require background checks. And most clients require some sort of background check and or drug screen. So it's important to be prepared to discuss anything that might come up in a background check. Let's just say that, years and years ago, you kind of in a lapse of judgment did something that
you wouldn't do today.
Ended you in trouble.
Yeah.
Right. You want to be prepared to talk about that right up front, because if a background check is done, it's going to show up, and it's much better if you bring it up first than if it comes up.
So then what do we expect when we actually get a job, or maybe after we apply? What are we expecting after we actually apply to you and Specialized Staffing?
That's a great question. So once you apply with a staffing firm, you can expect to be called with any opportunity that meets your qualifications, but also the preferences you gave in terms of how much you want to work, the schedule you want to work, the types of locations you'll travel to, how much you want to make, those sorts of things. And when we call you with an assignment, we will give you all of the details on the positions we're calling you with, where the job is located, what the hours are, what the requirements are, the types of skills you'll be using, the duties you'll be required to perform, how much it's going to pay, the duration, how long it's expected to last. If we know up front it may be a permanent opportunity, we will tell you that. And we will set you up with any interviews for the position that may be required. Once you interview, we'll also debrief with you, ask you how the interview went. Did you like it? What are your concerns? We'll also work with you straight through the negotiation in terms of, if it is a permanent position, negotiating the best possible offer. And it's also important when we talk about offers to know that you're not obligated to accept an assignment with a staffing firm. If you go and you apply and we call you and it isn't what you're looking for, or something has changed about your status, you are not obligated to accept. You can certainly decline. Thank you very much. Doesn't sound of interest to me. Call me with the next opportunity. Once you do accept an assignment, you certainly are expected to show up and, do the best you can, but you're not obligated to accept. And then also
Do we decline through Specialized Staffing, or do we decline to the employer?
No, the staffing firm will call you. Whatever staffing firm you're working with, whether it's Specialized Staffing or another firm, they will call you and they'll tell you everything they can about the assignment. You can decide and let them know if you want to accept the assignment or not.
Okay, I gotcha. All right, you know what? Go ahead.
And the last thing, just to let you know what to expect, after you finish an assignment, we will give you feedback on your performance. We'll let you know how you did. We always talk to our clients. We always find out how things went, and we will always provide you with helpful feedback.
And how do people take that? How do they accept that? The people who have just gotten out of their temp positions, is that received well?
Well, oftentimes it's good feedback, but whenever there's feedback that may point to a need to brush up on a skill or a need to, reel in dependability, whenever we do provide feedback, we do so prefacing it with we're trying to help you do better the next time. So typically it's received well because it is meant with the very best intent.
And if you're telling me that I need to brush up on a skill and I do, in fact, do that, how important is it that I get back to you to update my status or new skills?
Very important. And a good example, let's just say we send you somewhere and you're required to know Excel. And maybe you were in last year and you tested and you did well in Excel. But on this assignment, for some reason, that just, there were some, you struggled using Excel. We would certainly let you know that. And what's funny, Tracy, is normally it's not a surprise. Normally we hear from the employee first, hey, I'm struggling. So really, it's a wash there. But we would recommend that you brush up on your Excel skills. And if you do, then call us. We'll give you the Excel assessment again, and we'll see where your score is. And if your proficiency level is improved, then you can be considered for assignments that require that level of proficiency in Excel. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does. And Lisa Gard with us as we wrap up our time together here in the next few minutes. But Lisa Gard with Specialized Staffing based here right in Butler County. Talk about your website. I know you've changed names. We've talked about this a couple of times in the past few months, but talk about your website and how important it is to keep checking back on your website.
Sure. Well, we update our website quite often with the new opportunities we're taking in. So it's important to check that often. Weekly is best. And the new website is thebestworkwithus.com. And it's also a way that you can contact us and update us with any new skills or changes in your status. There's also a career portal called myspecializedcareer.com. There's a link on our website to that portal. That is a resource for job seekers. There are links to videos on interviewing tips. There are resume templates. We put out monthly webinars on different topics, how to do a resume, how to prepare for an interview, how to handle challenges in your job. And if you sign into that, you'll get a monthly newsletter that kind of reminds you about those webinars, sends you the webinar topics. And again, that is thebestworkwithus.com.
Thank you so much for your website, but also how about your phone number if we'd like to give you a call?
Yep, it's 724-287-8380.
And just your final thoughts as we close our time, Lisa, just on the importance of temping, especially when we're talking about college graduates or soon to be, but for anybody, any adult that's out there that would like to do this, just talk about the importance of temping for a moment.
Sure. Well, and it's also important in terms of providing a service to the business community. Oftentimes, businesses have a need for a project to be completed. It might be a spike in business. It might be to cover for somebody who's out ill. You never know what's going to happen. Oftentimes, clients will call us when their business is picking up, and they can't really commit to hiring somebody permanently unless they know business is going to continue to sustain that need. So they'll hire a temporary or a contract worker to come in and fill that need, and as business continues to improve, that may turn permanent. So it's an awesome way to keep money coming in. It's an awesome way to brush up on your skills or to maintain your skills or to use new skills. It's also an awesome way to meet people who can be helpful to you in your future, keep that resume built up, keep those gaps off the resume. It's just all around, a great opportunity.
Lisa Gard with Specialized Staffing. Lisa, thanks so much for your time.
Sure, Tracy. Thank you.
And thank you, folks, for joining us. Of course, you can always join us online if you'd like to listen to the podcast of the day, which this will be. It's WISR680.com. I'm Tracy Morgan with Let's Talk.